So today what I'm about to show you is a really popular effect that's really getting used a lot, which I believe you might have seen in many websites as well. So here, as you can see, we have this not so appealing card wherein we have a logo at the center. Now, when I move my mouse, you'd see that we have this cool gradient that follows our mouse. And then also we have this text that sort of looks like futuristic, and then they sort of get randomly generated, or they basically sort of move along our mouse's position sort of. So we're gonna have this effect built in this video. So the source code is gonna be in the description. If you want, you can download and play with that. So without a delay, let's get started and let's learn to build this cool effect. All right, so to build the card here in my index.html file, I've already added the styling and the HTML. So first, let's understand the styling or the basic layout of the card. So the card, basically, we have a card container which contains everything, and then we have a wrapper, and then within that we have the actual card. Now the actual card has a card logo within which we have the SVG, which is this. Now, if you're wondering where I got this logo, I didn't make this. I basically copied it from logo Ipsum or Pixum. I don't know. Logo Ipsum, I guess. I'll add the link down in the description so you guys can check that out. So basically, it basically provides you with free logos, SVGs, which you can use in your projects. So yeah, these basically are placeholder logos, by the way. So we have the logo here, we have card background and card text overlay. Now, instead of adding the gradient or the color directly in the card, we have a separate div and then also a separate div for the text. Now you might think, why do we have it separately? The reason for that is in the card background, we would have a radial gradient and then would have a mix blend mode. So to have this mix blend mode property, we need it in a separate element. So this basically spreads entire across the entire card with position absolute and width and height as 100%. It has this background of radial gradient and then mix blend mode as darken. Now due to this, what happens is when you have the text overlay underneath, so instead of having the gradient as the background, you would see the gradient color as the font color for the text that we're going to add inside or append inside of this card text overlay. So yeah, that's basically the CSS logic. Now let's add JavaScript and let's get it working. So here, as you can see, when I hover my mouse, nothing actually works. And yeah, one more thing to note is that initially this has opacity of 0. So when you don't hover, it's not visible. But when you hover, you have the opacity as 1. Now you may think, why is not anything visible? The reason for that is we don't have any content within this, so it's not visible. I mean, even if it's visible, we can't really see, basically. So let's add the script tag and let's start adding our stuff. So the first thing that we need is a set of all the different characters that we're going to be adding here. So we have some special characters, lowercase a to z, and then uppercase a to z, including the numbers from 0 to 9. And then we need a function to pick a random character from this string. So we get this get random character function, which basically uses math.random. And then since math.random returns any decimal point from 0 to 1, so it can be anything and the index can be out of range of this string. So we need to make sure that whatever number it returns, that specific indexed character is already in here and not out of the string's index, basically. So to do that, what we do is we multiply this with the length of the characters here. And this should always should give us a character that ranges from 0, this, and then maximum it can go to this 9. I don't know. I think there are 65 characters, I think. Not sure. So the last that it can give is this. So yeah, and then this math.floor is to basically round up the number. We don't want any floating points, so we're gonna just remove that basically. And we get the random index. So what we do is we have this character, and then we just pick off that random specific character from this character set. All right, so we have now the random character. We need to build a entire string from this random character. So this string would take in a length. So you need to specify what is the actual length of the string that you want to make. And then we have the result, which initially would be an empty string. We're going to run a for loop that's going to run length times. Now, if you specify here as 10, it would mean that you want a string of characters of 10 characters. So this for loop would run basically 10 times. Initially, the result's going to be empty string, and we're going to keep appending the random string onto this result. So we have result, and we plus equals, we append the random character, which is this function. And then we return the result. So now we have our random character as well as a random string. Now what we want to have is when we move our mouse, we want to see the effect. So first, let's grab the card and also the text overlay. And then we have our handle mouse event listener. And then we add this onto the card. When the mouse moves, we add this handle mouse movement. Let's save. And now when we move our mouse, nothing actually happens because we haven't really added the core logic inside of this. So first, what we want to do is let's get the area of the card. So to get the card's area, what we do is we have card.get bounding client rect, which basically gives you the coordinates of the card element. And then we get the mouse X and mouse Y position of the cursor in respect to the card. So event.clientX is basically the mouse's position with respect uh, to the browser, basically. And then we subtract that with the left position, or basically the X position of our card. Similarly, we do for the Y, and we get our mouse X and mouse Y, which is basically the X and Y position of the mouse in respect to the card. And then what we do is we have our text overlay dot text content, and then here we just add random string, and then we add here as 2000. So basically the string would have 2000 characters. Let's save. And now when I move my mouse, as you can see, every time I move my mouse, it basically generates random characters, but we don't see the gradient. So the reason for that is we have our mouse X and mouse Y, but we haven't really added the gradient. Now, even though we have the gradient showing up here, we only want the gradient to be only at the specific portion wherein we're basically moving our mouse. So to do that, we need image masking. So first, let's give a radius to the masking surface or the masking area. So let's just say it has a 400 of masking radius. Then we have text overlay.style, and then here we have image mask. And what we do is we add here a radial gradient, wherein the radius of the gradient would be mask radius. This would be a circle. And then the X and Y position would be our current X and Y position of our mouse. And then we specify the gradient. Now when I save, when I move my mouse, you can see that we have this cool gradient showing up only on the specific area wherein I'm moving my mouse. So yeah, that's it for this video. Hope this video was fun. The source code is going to be down in the description, so make sure to check it out and play with it. So yeah, meet you guys in the next video. Till then, bye bye, take care, and peace.